Hello and welcome to this Moneycontrol live stream. I'm Nandita, Khemka, and I have with me my colleague Santosh, Nair, aka Santo, and we are here to discuss the expectations from the Fed's FOMC meet decision that will be announced later tonight. Well, Santo, the case is building up for a 25 basis point rate hike once again. That's the consensus estimate. But do you think it will be a dovish hike wherein the Fed indicates that they will pause hereafter?
Well, in the past also the Fed has made it clear that their moves will be data dependent. Now, the widely held view at this point in time is that the Fed is likely to pause. If you look at most of the comments by economists, there seems to be a consensus view that probably this is the last of the hike in a long time to come. But also remember what is happening at this point, which is also making the Fed's task difficult, is that the moment the market senses some kind of pause in interest rate, they begin to rally, and that makes the task of the Fed very tough. Now, there is a reason, there's good cause for the Fed to go slow on the hikes, or pause at least for the time being. That's because the previous hikes are still just beginning to take effect, and the Fed also realizes that if it tries to push for interest rates too hard, it could lead to the kind of accidents that we saw 2 months back at Silicon Valley Bank and the First Republic Bank.
Right, last time it was the Silicon Valley Bank as well as Signature Bank, and yet this time around it's the First Republic Bank that was once again on the brink of collapse, and JP Morgan came into the rescue, and Jamie Dimon has said that this part of the crisis may finally be over for now. But given the fact that last night we saw two regional banks tumble in trade 15%, PacWest Bank, and there was another bank, the name I'm forgetting right now, but there are two banks which tumbled last night, and it once again gives rise to fears of contagion. Do you think that part of the crisis is over, or do you think there is still concerns over contagion that may play out in the market now?
One thing is for sure, small banks are hurting very clearly. That is because they're not getting adequate deposits. Now, if you don't get adequate deposits, you can't make loans. If you can't make loans, your earnings slow. That could create all kinds of problems. Remember that still we don't have an idea about the kind of trouble that is probably there under the bonnet. Now, in the case of First Republic Bank also, the market was expecting the deposit outflows to be somewhere in the vicinity of 70-80 billion dollar. But actually, when you adjust for the bailout deposits that the bank had got from some of the other bigger banks, the deposit outflows were well in excess of $100 billion. So a lot of customers are now actually parking money in high yielding bonds. So that is draining one source of deposit stream for them. Secondly, there also seems to be some kind of increasing mistrust about smaller banks, which is why many customers are now shifting incremental deposits to larger banks. So there is an issue. Smaller banks are losing deposits, and that is hurting their ability to grow.
And that's showing up in the markets as well, right? So if the Fed indicates that if they keep the door open for more interest rate hikes, given that inflation is down to 5%, but of course still way ahead of the 2% target that the Fed actually has, right? If the Fed indicates that they are open to more rate hikes going forward, do you think the RBI will once again go ahead and raise interest rates in the upcoming meeting, given the fact that RBI governor had clearly indicated that the last time it was a pause and not a pivot, and market people are actually factoring in one last rate hike by the RBI? Do you think that could be a possibility going forward in the next RBI meeting?
See, the view I'm getting speaking to people in the market is that at this point, even if the RBI decides to hike rates, it will be more a function of domestic inflation than anything else. What we are seeing is consumer price inflation has fallen to a 15-month low. Wholesale price inflation has fallen to a 29-month low. So inflation clearly appears to be coming in control. And what has changed in the last month, though we'll have to wait and see if this can sustain, is that capital portfolio flows, foreign portfolio flows have been pretty strong. So $1.3 billion coming in.
They made a comeback.
Yeah. So for the first 4 months, now it is about net of $1.83 billion sale. This is just as far as the equity inflows are concerned. So the pressure on rupee to some extent has eased, also because oil prices have been stable.
Yes.
They surged
They've come down to $75
per
barrel
in
now.
April, but now again they are showing signs of weakening. But again, early to say, because We don't know how the production cut will play out. Will OPEC decide to cut some more? All those are still big ifs. But clearly, the fall in oil prices also seem to indicate a generally bearish view on the world economy at this point in time. So, all things said, RBI is under no compulsion to raise rate just because the Fed has done so. So, there is some bit of leeway there. Normally, you would have to, because if the differential becomes too wide, automatically more money will flow, or it becomes difficult for the RBI to attract money into Indian bonds.
Right, and given the fact that the foreign investors have made a comeback, and if Fed is a little dovish in its outlook, that means we may see more inflows into the Indian market. So that would of course be a positive for our markets. Well, that's that. We are out of time on this Money Control live stream, but we will of course be watching out for the Fed's decision later tonight, and we'll of course be live with the Fed's speech later tonight, Fed chairperson's speech rather later tonight, and tomorrow of course we'll get you an analysis of what the Fed's outlook means for markets world over. Well, with that, it's a wrap from me and Santo. But stay tuned, because coming up next is a midday market check with me and Yatin at 12:30. So tune in for that as well. Thanks a lot for watching.
Thank you.